I'm dressed as a vicious matriarch, abandoning the male lead for the sake of my future, but when I flirtatious interactions with other men, he still looks away. He sat me in his arms and asked me, "What is your relationship with him?" The sky is blue in Willowbrook City. Just as blue as it was 6 years ago. I stood in front of the Stanford University Mathematics Research Center waiting for someone. Suddenly a cat came out from inside. I recognized it as a blue and gold gradient English shorthorn named Machi. He saw me and surprised me by running to my feet and rubbing my leg. And he recognized me. I gently stroked its fur. With a hint of sadness in my eyes, in the blink of an eye. Machi had gained so much weight, and I was already 28 years old. "Machi, where have you been?" An anxious voice accompanied by panicked footsteps came out of Machi's owner. My ex-boyfriend, Ethan Sullivan. When he saw me, he immediately stopped in his tracks and pulled his face down towards Machi and chided. "Machi, what are you doing? Get over here now." Machi was startled and ran back to him. Ethan Sullivan was in a bad mood and I was bitter inside. It's always so awkward when former men and women meet years after a breakup. Then another man stepped out. Did Machi find it? The scene became even more awkward because she was my roommate from college. Sophia Bennett. She smiled oddly at me. "Hazel, you came here too." She skimmed Ethan Sullivan with a look in her eyes that clearly said, "Again you have the nerve to come to him too." I taunted her back. "You're from the Mathematics Research Center now. Are you that good?" Sophia Bennett and I have never been on good terms. "And we are at loggerheads." Ethan Sullivan's face was cold and he didn't say a word. I knew that he was angry. That's when another footstep came. Unhurried, I raised an eyebrow at Sophia Bennett. Here comes the man I was waiting for. Luna Campbell walks out of it leisurely, like she's come out at a special time to watch the show. She ignores my gaze. Her tone light. "I just got a little delayed. Let's go now." I didn't say anything else and turned to walk away. Her following me, waiting until we were far away from Mathematics Research Center. I spoke. "Did Miss Luo just have fun watching that play? Obviously told me it was coming out, but ended up making me wait so long." Luna Campbell's tone was serious. "It was fun." I sneered as she asked me in return. "Didn't you come to see me specifically to see Ethan Sullivan? I mean, what's with the two of us being so close that you came to see me as soon as you returned home?" I was silent, and the answer was self-evident. "Hazel, are you nice? You weren't the one who brought up the breakup back then. So why are you coming after Ethan Sullivan now?" Luna Campbell's taunt I take wholeheartedly. "Yeah, I'm the one who dumped him in the first place. And now I'm begging to get back together. How shameless." "He and Sophia Bennett, are they close now?" My tone was low, and it was hard to hide the sourness in it. "It's quite good. Sophia Bennett comes to see him all the time." So that's it. Sophia Bennett has liked him for so many years and now it's finally coming to fruition, seeing that I was depressed. Luna Campbell didn't say anything. We walked to my car and I handed her the gift I'd brought. She nodded her thanks and left. I wandered around campus alone, driving around and around until I came to the main hall building. Wanda hadn't changed much over the years, except that I had the feeling that the passage of time brings change as I watched the students come and go. System AI prompted me that the plot progress was 50% complete. I stayed up late and died suddenly. System AI brought me to this book. As long as I complete the task, I can be resurrected, and my task is to be a good evil female match and finish the plot. This book is about Sophia Bennett, the heroine, who had a crush on Ethan Sullivan, the hero, back in college. But at the time Ethan Sullivan was in a relationship with her roommate, Hazel, and Sophia Bennett kept that love close to her heart. Sophia Bennett accompanied Ethan Sullivan to get over his love affair, and the two of them got closer and closer until Hazel came back to her country and begged Ethan Sullivan to get back together. Hazel's constant tripping up of Sophia Bennett makes their relationship grow stronger and stronger, and the two of them end up together this year. My 10th year as Hazel. The plot is halfway through and I'll be done soon, but why am I sad? It's like I've been living as Hazel for so many years. Sister, why are you gawking here? The person in front of me tapped me on the shoulder and I looked back, looking at him. I was surprised. Orlando Bennett, why are you here? Orlando Bennett is a young boy I met in the US. 5 years younger than me. And I was his tutor for a while. He smiled coyly at me. I'm here to study abroad. But you didn't tell me. I didn't move to distance myself from him. I wanted to surprise my sister. I just didn't expect to meet her here. He smiled even more shyly as he said this. The blush on his face so deep it looked like a very heavy blush. I actually knew what was on his little mind. So, I smiled politely and made my excuses to slip out. You're about to go to class. Right. And I've got things to do. So I'm going to go first. Orlando Bennett takes my hand. Is Sis free tonight? I'd like to take Sis to dinner. We haven't even seen each other in a while. Orlando Bennett is the most pampered boy I've ever met. I was interrupted by a heavy cough just as I opened my mouth. Orlando Bennett immediately releases my hand and greets the visitor. Ethan Sullivan looked unsettled. Orlando Bennett. It's almost time for class. Why are you still here? I only knew that Ethan Sullivan was an assistant professor in the School of Mathematics. I didn't realize that he also taught foreigners math. I'm sorry, Mr. Chen. I'll be right there. Orlando Bennett eyed me. Sister. As far as I can remember, Ethan Sullivan also called me sister. But that was when he was 17. I glance at Ethan Sullivan and smile brightly. Yeah, I'll call you then. Orlando Bennett smiles back and darts into the school building. I look at Ethan Sullivan and blush even more. Smirking. Mr. Chen. Class is almost over. Sophia Bennett ran over panting. Yen Zhou. You forgot your cell phone. I cursed in my heart. Ethan Sullivan gave me a provocative look. See you. Let's have dinner together tonight. Sophia Bennett also looks at me, again with a strange look. Sure. I turn around and leave, thinking back on the scene I just had. I just think all three of us are a little bit majorly sick. The System AI prompted me that it was time to go to the next episode. I get drunk and run to Ethan Sullivan's house crying that I'm still over him and begging to get back together. He kicked me out unceremoniously. The truth is, I was so drunk that I ran to his door and knocked on it but no one answered, and crouched on the doorstep for a long time until he came home. My legs went numb from squatting and he carried me back to his house. I'm like a wild horse when I'm drunk. No one can pull me back. Machi. Why are you so greasy and not at all juvenile? I've been petting the cat and gripping Machi so hard he's losing his FUR.AT. One time I spent a lot of time here and knew the place well. I pulled Ethan Sullivan's finger and spat on the clothes in the check room. These clothes are 5 or 6 years old. They're so ugly. Why don't you change them? Ethan Sullivan coaxed me helplessly. Okay. I'll change them right away. System AI kept prompting me to make me cry and beg to get back together, and I just found it noisy and ignored it. I walked the length of his house and returned to the couch exhausted and passed out. Ethan Sullivan scooped me up. Don't fall asleep. Let me ask you something. He was clinging to me, making me uncomfortable. I pushed him with little effect. What's your relationship with Orlando Bennett? How did you guys meet? I have a problem with being drunk. I answer questions and tell the truth. I cocked my head and thought for a moment. Friends. I was his tutor in America. So do you like him? No. He hugged me tighter and I almost sat in his arms. Why did you agree to have dinner with him? I rolled my eyes. I'm sick. You're so annoying. Asking so many things when you said you'd ask for one. I'll ask one last thing. Do you still like me? He gently brushed my lips. His gaze obscured. I was silent for a long time before I said, I like it. He kissed my lips. Fiercely. Hard. I woke up sore and dizzy. Still wearing my Ethan Sullivan t-shirt. The vacuum kind, walking out of the bedroom and onto the balcony. I saw my clothes hanging there wet. I questioned him. Why don't you dry your clothes? He didn't care at all. You can dry it now too. Me. Luckily it's Saturday. I put my clothes in the dryer and came back to find Ethan Sullivan making breakfast. I was slightly surprised that he was all that good. I used to be the one to cook for him. Breakfast was not something I wanted to eat though. Because I was having my period and it was killing me. Ethan Sullivan panicked and ran out the door. I take one look at the roaring dryer. Another at my thighs. And mentally curse Ethan Sullivan 1,000 times, but still. I pick up my cell phone and call him. I want overnight pads. Fast. By the time Ethan Sullivan returned, I had used most of the bathroom paper that I changed into overnight pads and lay back on the bed. He brought me noodles and herbal tea and hung his head slightly. Sorry. It's as if it's back to the old days when he pissed me off. Hazel handed Sophia Bennett the drugged wine in an attempt to make a public spectacle of her. But it led to Sophia Bennett and Ethan Sullivan. I looked at the glass of wine in front of me, my eyes wandering and my mind drifting. Host. The System AI's prodding voice brought me back to my senses. I handed my drink to the waiter next to me and pointed in Sophia Bennett's direction. You take this glass of wine to the lady in blue, and say that it's from young Master Shin, and that he's waiting for her in the first room on the second floor. I watched Sophia Bennett pick up the glass of wine, take a sip, unwilling to look at it again, and hurriedly leave the banquet hall. It was a cold November day in Willowbrook City, and the evenings were windy. I feel the stinging cold wind hit me in the face and exhale a cloudy breath. By now Ethan Sullivan would have found the agonizing Sophia Bennett. That description from the book plays over and over in my mind, and I never knew my memory turned out to be so good. In particular, the blurred likenesses became clear and familiar, and the words turned into vivid images firmly imprinted in my mind. It's so good, I'll be able to go home and see my grandmother soon. So you're here. I've been looking for you for a long time. A surprised and heavily breathy voice sounded behind me, and I turned around to see that it was Ethan Sullivan. The surprise on his face changed to astonishment mixed with heartache. Why are you crying? I reached up and wiped my hand. It was mostly wet, so I was unconsciously crying. It's okay. The wind is too strong. He stepped forward to wipe my tears. It occurred to me that if he was here, what about Sophia Bennett? Would she? I immediately ran towards the second floor, only to run into Sophia Bennett, who was walking towards me. She was still holding the glass of wine and looked bland. I breathed a sigh of relief. Okay. Sophia Bennett splashed her drink on me, her tone dismissive. Stupid. It seems she already knew there was something wrong with the wine, so the plot doesn't fall apart. I ignored her. My mind urgently called out to System AI. System AI did not respond. Instead, Ethan Sullivan took my hand and headed for his bedroom. He handed me a set of clothes. Change into them. Wet clothes stick to your body uncomfortably. I took them, ran to the bathroom to change, and came out. Aren't you going back to the banquet hall? You're the main attraction today. I wanted to be alone. I hadn't expected what had happened today, and had to run through the plot. Well, how Sophia Bennett had found out. How System AI suddenly couldn't call out. Ethan Sullivan shakes his head and takes a step towards me, and I'm inexplicably a little flustered. Why did you serve Sophia Bennett that drink? I've never been on good terms with Sophia Bennett, and I hate her. Even if you hated her, you wouldn't do this. I sneered. I would do this. Sophia Bennett had just completely disrupted me with that splash. I couldn't calm down, and he was still here asking questions, making me even more annoyed. Ethan Sullivan turns the tables and doesn't dwell on that drink. Last time I said marriage, you didn't say yes. I've thought about it a lot over this period of time. In fact, since we broke up, I've wondered if I didn't do enough to make you want to break up. It seems like you've been insecure since you returned home, always sad. I thought it was because of the death of your father and brother. But that night you were clearly talking about liking me, but your eyes were full of sadness. Did I do something wrong and that's why you're sad? I swallow hard to suppress the sourness in my heart. No, you didn't do anything wrong. Then can my sister give me a birthday present? Can you give me a chance again? I don't know about the past. I still want to be involved in the future. He called me sister again, as if going back 9 years. It was also in the same room that he asked me with great anticipation. Sister, can you give me a birthday present? I want to be your boyfriend. On my 18th birthday, I became his girlfriend. For my 19th birthday, I gave him mochi. For my 20th birthday, I gave him myself. 21st birthday. We've broken up. Now on his 27th birthday, he asked if I could give him another chance. He said it with such solemnity, as he did then. Oh, Ethan Sullivan, why does it always have to be this way? Always putting yourself in such a low position that every word uttered gives me an ulcer, but my grandmother is still waiting for me to wake up. She's in such bad health. I'm afraid she'll leave me before I see her one last time. Sister, you're crying again. Don't cry. I'll be heartbroken. Unconsciously he had walked up to me, very, very close, and gently wiped away my tears. I pushed him away with a determined tone. I don't even like you. I used you in order to use you. I'm so selfish. What's the point of liking me? Besides, you're going to end up with Sophia Bennett. He still moved closer to me. It doesn't matter. Use me or not. I'm willing. Ship. I'm going to suppress my emotions. You don't. He takes another step forward and takes me in his arms. I'm going to like you no matter what. The faint scent emanating from him enveloped me as if I were in the afternoon of my breakup. His eyes were red. But he still smiled and comforted me. Sister, don't cry. No matter what. I will always like you. I leaned into his arms, tears wetting his shirt, and all the love that had been building up exploded in this moment. Okay. Let's get married. The words hadn't even left my mouth when I felt something in my brain tearing at my nerves. One after the other. A red warning filled my eyes, but Sister May, I said. Congratulations, host. Mission successful. I felt that my soul was gradually peeling away from my body. Things in front of me began to blur. And I couldn't tell if it was Ethan Sullivan's bedroom or the hospital room I was lying in. I remembered when Sister May said that there was a possibility that the plot of this book would fall apart, and that I was to prevent it from falling apart. Why would the plot fall apart? Because Ethan Sullivan has an autonomous consciousness. The plot has been falling apart since the moment we met, becoming conscious again. He first smelled the pungent odor of disinfectant. Lian Chan, you finally woke up. Doctor, come and see. Grandma's excited voice echoed in my ears. And she seemed to be instantly energized again. I felt the warmth of her hands. But my heart contracted violently as if I had been pricked by a needle, seeing my favorite grandma. But losing Ethan Sullivan. Anne. Oh, Mom. Grandma. Sure enough. As soon as I opened my mouth, my voice was hoarse and unlike words. Hey. Grandma is here. Grandma held my hand tightly. The corners of her eyes were wet with tears. The doctor examined my body and said that there was nothing serious, and that I could go home after a few days of rest, back home. Mom and Dad were as cold as ever, and the only thing they cared about was always my brother. I didn't care either, and stayed with my grandmother with all my heart. Only I got better and Grandma got sick. The doctor said Grandma had been sick for a long time, but was just holding on before. In order to wait for me to wake up, the medical standard on my side of the family is average. So in order to treat Grandma better, I took her to the big city to see a doctor, but Grandma couldn't make it. I knew that she had fallen ill from the time she worked without menstruation after giving birth to my father. The disease had tormented her for many years, and she had been looking forward to relief. Before she left, she took my hand and smiled a warm and relieved smile. Lian Chan, I'm leaving. I saw your grandfather coming to pick me up. This old man. His legs are not good and he still walks so fast. I controlled myself to try not to let the tears fall. But reality mercilessly went against my will. In fact, after your grandfather left, I've been living a very bitter life. Now it's not bitter. It's just a pity that I can't see your boyfriend. I don't know what kind of person he is. Is it worth it for us, Lian Zai, to commit to a lifetime? Grandma did not finish. Closed her eyes forever. I hold her hand, tearing my heart and lungs, crying. Endless. The sky is dark. I went to the hospital to pack up the rest of my things. But I saw someone unexpectedly, someone who couldn't possibly be here at all. Luna Campbell. But I was stunned. A character from a book had run into reality. Or was it just someone who looked like Luna Campbell? But it's too much of a likeness, seeing as she was preoccupied and in a hurry. Had something happened? A voice inside me urged me to follow and see. She entered the elevator, which went straight up to the 12th floor. I waited for the elevator to take its turn and I went up to the 12th floor as well. The 12th floor is a VIP ward. There are no sick people living there. It's quiet. I looked through the room doors one by one and saw a name I was familiar with, Patient Hazel. When I came back, I kept trying to think of Ethan Sullivan as a dream I'd had for just a little too long, but the presence of Luna Campbell and the words patient Hazel in front of me ripped the memory from my heart. I heard two voices from inside. And then the door opened and a man stepped out. Ethan Sullivan. He was much thinner and gaunt, and his whole body had a disheveled look to it. I stared at him blankly, the corners of my mouth tugging. But I couldn't say a word, but he couldn't see me and walked straight past me. I walked into the hospital room and Luna Campbell acted like she didn't see me either. Hazel just lay there quietly, like a lifeless, cold porcelain doll. In addition to her, there was someone else lying in the other hospital bed. Mama Hoh. My pupils shrank at the sight of mom's frail appearance. Many thoughts flashed through my mind, and the one that ultimately stayed was the one I least wanted to admit. I ran out the door in a panic and ran to the lower stairway before stopping. A person. No, I should say a realization appeared in my mind. I could call out to System AI again. 3 months after the last time. I thought you said you'd create a Hazel that had nothing to do with Ethan Sullivan and the others. How come she's lying there? And why did I meet them if they're characters from a book? System AI's voice was still cold. We did create a Hazel, but it was discovered by Ethan Sullivan. We had no other choice but to put Hazel into a coma. What you saw just now was the scene after Hazel fell into a coma. Ethan Sullivan's autonomous consciousness is too strong for us to suppress. And at this rate, the world will collapse. Host, we need you to go back. I sneered. You were the ones who forced me to leave. And now you're the ones who let me go back when something happens. You guys have big faces. System AIs remained calm, not half annoyed. But the words that came out made it hard for me to refuse. Host, Ethan Sullivan is waiting for you. And so is your mother. Mother Falk. Mama Falk was kind to me and truly loved her daughter. In the past 10 years, I have long regarded the Ho family as my true family. And they have made up for the love I was missing. Now that I see that Mother Ho is sick again, how can I be indifferent? Besides, I don't have anyone I care about in this world anymore. Fine. I'll go back. Between streams of light, I felt the space around me distort, and I was warped, snapping my eyes open. I was blinded by the bright light and closed them by reflex. When I opened my eyes again after adjusting, I saw Ethan Sullivan sitting frozen in his chair. We looked at each other, not knowing what to say, and silence spread between us. I tried to speak to break the awkwardness as he stood up and came over to help me sit up before sitting on the edge of the hospital bed. I subconsciously say, "Thanks." His hand falls to my cheek, stroking it gently, his eyes dark and uncertain, seeming to contain some sort of foreign emotion. It tickled me a little, and I couldn't resist grabbing his indulgent hand. In the quiet of the night, I heard a heartbeat that grew violent inside my chest, one after the other, as if it shook my whole world. I leaned forward and kissed his lips. Ethan Sullivan moved to respond to me. The kiss was more intense than any of our previous ones, until I couldn't take it anymore and tapped him on the shoulder, signaling him to release me. I leaned into his arms, breathing roughly to steady my rushing breath, hearing the movement of turning over next to me. I remembered that my mom was still asleep next to me and blushed a little too much. A little too quickly. But luckily she hadn't been woken up. Ethan Sullivan got a doctor to check me out. The doctor looked at me and wondered. Strange. You're not sick at all. How come you were unconscious before? I lowered my head and didn't dare to speak when my mom woke up and saw me alive. She hugged me and bawled like a baby, saying she wouldn't live if I didn't wake up. I quickly reassured her that I was fine. Luna Campbell came and cried too. I didn't realize we were so close and she was so worried about me. I was busy comforting her again when they all went out. Ethan Sullivan and I were the only ones left in the hospital room. He hadn't said a word since the doctor came in. Like he was harboring anger. I looked like I was going to lift the covers and get out of bed. But he came over to me and stopped me, and I took the opportunity to take his hand and sit him down on the bed. I shook his hand and asked him with a smile, "What's wrong?" Not a word. He asked me back. "You finally came back willingly." I stopped shaking his hand and a hint of a positive color appeared on my face. "When did you know?" "After you left the country." My eyebrows jumped. "So early." "I thought it was after the coma." "Hazel, is there nothing I can do to keep you? And it's not because of me that you chose to come back. It's because of your mother." The words were hard on my heart. I did come back because of you. Did you? I don't believe it. I'd never heard Ethan Sullivan speak in that tone of voice before, and it always seemed odd somehow, but at the moment it was more important to get him to start school. I sat a step forward and wrapped my arms around his waist, leaning against his shoulder. So what do you want? I want us to get married. I was momentarily speechless. I thought of the words that I didn't finish at the time. Yes. Let's get married. He turned around, and as he did I left his shoulder. He looked at me, his eyes sunk like a ghostly tan. Are you sure, sister? After you get married, you'll never leave. I lost my smile. What kind of talk is that? I nodded my head seriously and vigorously, and spoke in a solemn tone. Yes. Funky. Let's get married. He suddenly kisses me and I'm caught off guard, forced to endure his raging storm. I've moved back into Ethan Sullivan's house. After 6 years, but it's a little different than the last time I was here. There are a few more pots of greenery on the balcony, a few more big soft and cozy pillows on the couch, and more importantly the closet has been cleared out. All of this was done when I drunkenly spit on him and asked him to do it. He did each and every one of them. Ethan Sullivan pointed to the large check room and said, I can't make myself comfortable with the clothes in there. I'll wait for you to fill it yourself. The check room was actually a converted bedroom. And when I was in school I was a clothes blogger and had so many clothes that I couldn't fit in my dorm room. So he converted a guest bedroom into a check room for me to put my clothes in. After we broke up, I told him to get rid of all his clothes. He didn't. And now he wants me to fill it up for him personally. I used to fill this check room bit by bit. We even did it here. Now I'm going to fill it up again and I'm really looking forward to it. Ethan Sullivan took me to the kitchen again. Last time you said the kitchen was so short of cookware. I didn't know what to buy and I was afraid you wouldn't like it if I did. So I waited for you to come back and buy it. I love to cook and I love to buy all kinds of cookware. And after dropping a wave of it in anger earlier, the kitchen is now pretty empty. I wrapped my arms around his waist and wanted to bury my face in his chest, but suddenly remembered that I wasn't that short, so I could only lean on his shoulder. Ship ah ship. How can I leave you when you're like this? He hugged me tighter. So don't leave me. We went to the grocery market like we did in the beginning and went home to cook and spend a very pleasant evening. My mom was in a great mood since I woke up. And it didn't take long for her to get better and be successfully discharged from the hospital, now every day with the neighborhood aunts to talk about. Because of her. The neighborhood gossip, I know most of it. We are not Willowbrook City people. Dad and brother passed away. I took her to Willowbrook City. Let her change the environment. At first she was not adapted to. And now play more than I have 6. When I took Ethan Sullivan to her, she was square dancing in her big red dress. She wasn't surprised when I told her I was going to marry Ethan Sullivan. And she happily agreed. She said, Shaoshan, this child, although not as good as your father to me, but still good. You see, you are sick when he was busy for the difficult. Surely is really love you. Your mom is an enlightened person, to tie the knot on it. When your father and I also see eye to eye on the marriage. Ethan Sullivan's mom and dad are much more awesome than my mom. I'd met them before and expected this to be a little awkward, but they were still welcoming. Especially Ethan Sullivan's mom. Ethan Sullivan's sister said that her mom and her dad used to run with the ball when they had a fight, and that Ethan Sullivan thought his dad was long dead until he was 5 years old. So it wasn't a big deal for us. After listening to his sister, I just thought that his mom and dad's story would be too good for a novel. I've been in a good mood these days. But there are always people who run out and bother you when you're sweet and in a cheerful mood, says the system AI. Host. You have a new mission. I was furious. What's wrong with you? You're the ones begging me to come back, eh? Why do I have to do a mission? System AI said to herself. You ruined the female host's emotional scene, so you have to fulfill one of her wishes. Now I couldn't say anything, because I just got the news 2 days ago that Orlando Bennett is actually with Luna Campbell, in the original book. Orlando Bennett was the one who fell for Sophia Bennett later on. Orlando Bennett said he was influenced by me when he said he liked people who were good at math. And being a math scum, I have a natural affinity for people who are good at math. All I could do was dryly ask, "What's her wish?" I've never hated the electronic voice so much. That's something you need to ask her yourself. What would Sophia Bennett's wish be? To be with Ethan Sullivan. I made an appointment to meet Sophia Bennett. She went to the appointment, but didn't look good. I had my standard fake smile on my face with more apologies than I could possibly overflow. I came to apologize to you. It was wrong of me to drug you. I'm sorry. Sophia Bennett taunted me as always. Your expression is overly pompous. You haven't acted in years. Your acting skills have receded to the west. I endure. I genuinely want to apologize to you. The words are true. I did apologize to her. She smiled deviously. You have a much better expression this time. I hold back again. No. I didn't still spill my drink on you. She ruffles her hair indifferently. You're generous, but I'm over the moon. Anything you want, I can get it for you. Sophia Bennett leaned back in her chair, her tone playful. So I want Ethan Sullivan. You give me that too. I didn't say anything. Liar. I don't want a dog man like Ethan Sullivan. Dog man. Now I was confused. Don't you like him? That was before. I don't like him since he used me to irritate you. I originally agreed to him because I wanted to upset you. But then I thought it was so pointless. After all these years of reading, you still do such low things. Looking back on the years I've known Ethan Sullivan, the more I think about it, the more I realize there are a lot of points about him that I don't like, and how I came to like him in the first place. Sophia Bennett dazzled me with this huge statement. No wonder she had such a strange look in her eyes then. System AI said the plot would fall apart. And it doesn't look like Ethan Sullivan was alone in that. So what do you? I tugged at the corner of my mouth. Really want? Sophia Bennett spoke calmly. But the words came out like a powerful bomb that blew right through me. I want $30 million. $30 million. Where can I get it? Willowbrook City. With the price of this house. On my own. I can't afford to buy a house in my whole life. With this $30 million, I won't have to worry in the future. How about it? Do you give it? I gritted my teeth and nodded. The method of how to make $30 million quickly is written in the criminal code. Just kidding. The only thing I can think of is to go back to my old job, when I was in school. I worked as a blogger. Then by chance I did a couple TV shows and got a little bit of fame after I left the country. I swung for the fences. Didn't update my social media platforms much. Took fewer ads. And didn't do any movies anymore. Now I read the comments. There are still people who know that I came back to China and asked me if I acted in a movie. Sister Tang, who brought me into the industry before, also asked me. Sister Tang, the owner of a studio, said I was a gifted actor and liked me a lot. Sister Tang said, the drama I wanted you to act in before has been finalized. But there's good news. Liu Zhou is going to make a new movie, so you can audition for his female lead. The first drama I filmed back then was with Liu Zhou. We were CPs in the drama and we even gained a small wave of CP fans after it aired. You definitely won't make $30 million from just one movie. But you can pick more scripts with this. But then my wedding date with Ethan Sullivan will be postponed. When I told Ethan Sullivan about this, he had a calm expression. But his tone could be heard in a strong displeasure. Why do you want to make a movie? Do you lack money? Me. That's a little too smart, I freely admit. Right. I came back on the condition that I fulfill a wish of Sophia Bennett. And her wish was for me to give her $30 million. For how long? I weighed my words. Maybe 2 years. Ethan Sullivan didn't say anything as I burrowed into his arms and rested on them. Why don't we go register the marriage tomorrow? He pulls his hand out and motions for me to sit up. No. Just stick to the planned date. The next moment he was sitting on top of him by my waist, and I let out a gasp. I couldn't take this strong, direct movement from him. Sister, I'm not letting you go to the movie for nothing. So sister, make an effort and move yourself. Who was it that said men were nice to talk to after something like this? The audition turned out to be pretty good, and holding a Buddha's foot for 2 weeks on the spur of the moment was still somewhat effective. I managed to get the part after this movie. I did 3 more TV series in a row, and I was able to get $30 million after tax. I would like to thank Sister Tang from the bottom of my heart. She is simply my regenerative parent. My biggest hangover in this world, the airing of the TV series, made my fame rebound, and I picked up my career as a self-media blogger again. The movie came out in theaters just in time for Valentine's Day, and Ethan Sullivan dragged me to see it. The movie's paycheck accounted for the bulk of my income, and I relied on Liu Zhou to fly me around. After many years, Liu Zhou and I played CP again, and it did attract a lot of interest. It's just that someone wasn't so happy about it. The heating in the theater was turned up sufficiently, but I could still feel the constant coldness emanating from his body as I sat next to him. I was very confused. If I didn't like it, why did I have to come and get abused? When Liu Zhou took off his top, there were gasps of shock the entire time. Ethan Sullivan twisted his head to look at me, and I immediately said, "He doesn't have a better body than you." What followed was an ambiguous bed scene accompanied by kissing. I had the good sense to come up to his ear. Borrowed position. Liu Zhou has a lover, and he doesn't want to shoot this kind of thing. As a result, he coolly came to say, 10 years ago, you did not shoot it. At that time it was said that your first kiss gave him. I retorted, I wasn't in love with you at that time. I know. I'm just saying. I went to kiss his face curtly. I kind of knew why he had brought me to see this movie. So things have come to an end and I'm finally free to start planning our wedding. Getting married is such a pain in the ass. And Ethan Sullivan and I both tried to do it ourselves, and it just ended up being a lot of work. The wedding was a big affair. My mom led me in as I took a step towards the man who had been waiting for me. Many times he had walked towards me, and now it was my turn to walk towards him. After the wedding, I just felt like my legs weren't my own anymore and snapped out of bed and fell asleep. Woke up in the bathtub. I didn't want to move at all and let Ethan Sullivan clean me, only he didn't carry me to bed after washing and went to that check room. He put me on the couch, which was directly in front of a very large full-length mirror, so I could see everything. A lot of fragments suddenly flashed through my mind. Does your sister remember this place? Ethan Sullivan brought a towel for my hair. I blushed and kept my mouth shut. Actually, what I remember most is not our first time, but here, where sister taught me herself. Ethan Sullivan has a lot of things that I taught him, including grocery shopping, cooking, and cat ownership. Here is the beginning of his love affair with female supremacy, also taught by me. His hand rubbing his hair moved restlessly to my shoulder. Before slowly sliding down my chest, I took a deep breath and grabbed his disruptive hand. Stop rubbing it. He stopped moving and I stood up, pushing him backwards onto the couch and straddling his lap. Don't wipe it. It's going to get wet later anyway. I looked into his lust-filled eyes and kissed him softly. Ethan Sullivan, tonight, was extraordinarily wild, more excited than the night he got his license. In days, I thought I heard him say, "Sister, I've been waiting for this day for 12 years. A room of spring.